Good morning all. Today we will be discussing the topic desquamative gingivitis. I have made this lecture for third and final year BDA student. Important question is given here on the screen. Now coming on to the content of the topic. Content will be first introduction, history, classification, and most important that I have focused is histopathology. Clinical features, diagnosis and treatment plan will be taken in another lecture. Introduction. The term desquamation is derived from the Latin word desquamare, which means scraping fish flakes. Let us see what is scraping fish flakes. See, this is scraping of fish flakes. So, fish flakes, they are being removed. So, this scraping of fish flake means desquamate, which means scraping fish flakes. So what will be there in desquamative gingivitis? There is removal of epithelium will be there. Exfoliation of epithelium will be there. So desquamation is derived from the Latin word desquamare, which means scraping fish flake. So there will be loss of epithelial element in small and large amount. Peeling of skin and exfoliation of skin will be there, leaving underlying connective tissues denuded. And chronic desquamation of gingiva, when the same condition is there in the gingiva, when there is peeling of skin in the gingiva, peeling of epithelium is there in the gingiva, this is known as desquamative gingivitis. And hence this condition will be very painful one. So what will be there? The loss of epithelial element, as you can see in the picture, the epithelium of attached gingiva, free or attached gingiva, it will be, the epithelium will be exfoliated, and hence patient will have pain because of the formation of various ulcers, and moreover this area has a tendency to bleed. So what is important in the desquamative gingivitis is loss of epithelial element in small and large amount. We can see in the picture, I am repeating again, epithelium, this epithelium, it will peel off, it will exfoliate from the free as well as attached gingiva, and hence the patient will have burning of gingiva. The patient will have clinical features will be burning of gingiva and bleeding from the gums while brushing. Now, desquamative gingivitis is a descriptive clinical term. It is a descriptive clinical term for desquamation, either erosion, ulcer formation, vesicles or bulla that involve both free and attached gingiva. Initially there might be vesicle formation or bulla formation. Later on the epithelium, it will get eroded over a period of time and ulcer formation will be there, and because of that it is a very painful condition. Why I am putting the emphasis again and again over the clinical feature is because when we go through, we check the paper and we take the viva of the students, the student normally says desquamative gingivitis, there will be formation of deep pocket, bleeding on probing will be there. This condition is not at all related to the pocket or periodontal ligament. This condition involves the exfoliation of epithelium, the epithelium that is there, it is getting exfoliated, and hence patient will have burning sensation in the gingiva. Desquamative gingivitis is considered to be a clinical sign of associated systemic disease more than a disease itself. So desquamative gingivitis is not a disease. It is considered to be a clinical sign of associated systemic disease more than disease itself. Coming on to the history, desquamative gingivitis was first described in 1894 by Toms and Toms. Later on, Prince in 1932 coined the term desquamative gingivitis. So terminology was introduced by Prince in 1932. And the disease was later named as gingivosis. Classification. Desquamative gingivitis condition can be seen in various conditions like first of all, dermatological diseases like pemphigus, cicatricial pemphigoid, lichen planus, pemphigus, psoriasis, bullous pemphigoid, epidermolysis bullosa, contact stomatitis, various endocrine disturbances like estrogen deficiencies, hypothyroidism. It is associated with aging, abnormal response to bacterial plaque, in various idiopathic conditions, chronic infections like tuberculosis, chronic candidiosis and histoplasmosis. Desquamative gingivitis might be seen in these various conditions. Out of all these, mucous membrane pemphigoid and oral lichen planus, they constitute about 80% of the cases. Mucous membrane pemphigoid, oral lichen planus and pemphigus vulgaris have emerged as the most common causes of desquamative gingivitis. That is, most of the cases, 80% of the cases might be those of mucous membrane pemphigoid or oral lichen planus. The degree of oral, periodontal and systemic involvement determine the overall morbidity and mortality of the disease. Coming on to the etiopathogenesis. My main focus is on etiopathogenesis, how the disease progresses in the oral cavity. First of all, I will be discussing the etiopathogenesis of desquamative gingivitis. That means I will be talking about overall diseases that will be covered in desquamative gingivitis. The oral mucosa consists of stratified epithelium layer and connective tissue underneath. So that means we all know the oral mucosa, it is consisted of stratified epithelial layer and underlying connective tissue. Some areas are keratinized and some are non-keratinized. The gingiva is keratinized in order to resist the trauma caused by masticatory forces. The oral mucosa consists of three layers: stratified squamous cell epithelium, laminar proporia and basement membrane that separate them. And by this the integrity of the structure is maintained. Some of the epithelial protein assure inter-cell and cell membrane integrity. But if some autoimmune disease is there, the autoimmune disease target these proteins considered to be antigen and autoantibodies are formed against them. I will be explaining you in detail what is meaning of this. Epithelial protein targeted in oral autoimmune diseases. There are various protein in the epithelium that is being considered antigenic and antibodies are formed against them and they will be destroyed over a period of time. So various functions served by these protein, it is getting compromised and hence disease will be there. So let us have a look. In pemphigus vulgaris, desmoglein 1 and 3, against this protein antibody they are formed. In pemphigus foliaceus, desmoglein 1, paraneoplastic pemphigus, desmoglein 1 and 3, so on. So let us see where exactly these proteins are present in the epithelium. Desmoglein 1, just because if we know where exactly is the presence of the protein, then we know where exactly the disease will be developing. Desmoglein 1 is present in the layer of epidermis. So desmoglein 1 is present somewhere in the layer of epidermis. That means if antibodies are formed against desmoglein, the break in the continuity of this spinous layer of cell will be there and hence the bulla formation or blister formation will be there in this layer. Desmoglein 3 is present in the basal and spinous layer. It is there between the basal and the spinous layer, and hence, and if just in case if desmoglein 3 is affected, then the bulla formation or the antigen antibody reaction will be there in between the basal and spinous layer. Collagen type 7, BP and laminin, they are located near the basement membrane, and if antibodies are formed against collagen type 7, which is involved in the anchoring of the cells, keratin cell, with the underlying connective tissue, so this will be affected and the bulla formation will be there between the epithelium and the underlying connective tissue. Similarly with the BP and as well as laminin. So desmoglein 1 is present in the layer of epidermis. Desmoglein 3 is present in basal and spinous layer. Collagen type 7, BP and laminin is there in the basement membrane. So pemphigus vulgaris, desmoglein 1 and 3. So that means if we know where exactly this protein lie, we can easily make out, yes, in pemphigus vulgaris the problem will be there in the spinous layer. In if desmoglein 1, yes, again it will be there in the spinous layer. And desmoglein 1 and 3 both spinous as well as in basal layer. If laminin is involved, then it will be related to the basement membrane. Etiopathogenesis of lichen planus cells. Lichen planus and mucous membrane pemphigoid constitute 80% of the diseases that will be there in the desquamatic gingivitis. So we will be having look at the lichen planus. Etiology, etiopathogenesis of lichen planus. Exact etiology of oral lichen planus is still unknown. Most accepted and accurate data suggests that lichen planus is a T cell mediated inflammatory disease. Autocytotoxic CD8 and T cell trigger apoptosis of oral epithelial cell. I'll be explaining you in detail what is by diagrammatic representation how this process takes place. Abnormal recognition of basal keratinocyte as foreign antigen by Langerhans cell. Although there are so many, it is a complex disease in having various etiological background, but I'll be discussing the most accepted theory of the etiopathogenesis of lichen planus. First of all, abnormal recognition of basal keratinocyte as a foreign antigen by Langerhans cell. So Langerhans cell, it will recognize basal keratinocyte as a foreign antigen, and now CD8 cell recognize an antigen associated with MHC class 1 on keratinocyte by Langerhans cell, and after antigen recognition and activation, the CD8 cell, it will be getting converted into cytotoxic T cell which trigger keratinocyte apoptosis. Let us see how this will take place. Okay, now this slide is of Langerhans cell. Langerhans cell are mobile cell population with relatively slow turnover. Upon an antigen encounter, Langerhans cell and dendritic cell can leave the cutaneous compartment and migrate to peripheral lymphoid organ where they initiate T cell response. Having accomplished this task, they initiate event which finally result in their own demise. So it is the Langerhans cell. Let us have a look at the epithelial cell of gingiva. We can see in the diagram keratinocyte cell, and we all know the main function is to bear the masticatory force. So it is filled with a protein known as keratin. This cell, this is known as Langerhans cell. The Langerhans cell is a kind of a cell which is there for the surveillance. It will look around for the various bacteria, viruses or any antigen that is there, and its main function is to have a look for the various antigen that is there in the oral cavity. Next is melanocyte. It basically gives the color. and Merkel cell, which is a sensory cell. So the surveillance cell that is there, that is Langerhans cell, it is continuously looking for the antigen that is there. So when it encounter an antigen, it moves out of the epithelium. I'll be going back to the slide again. Langerhans cell are mobile cell population with relatively slow turnover. Upon an antigen encounter, when it recognize an antigen, it leaves the cutaneous compartment and migrate to peripheral lymphoid organ, where they initiate T response. Let us see how. So that means once it has encountered the antigen, it will leave the epithelium and it will move to underlying connective tissue to the cutaneous lymph node. So now this Langerhans cell, it has now detected an antigen, and once it has detected the antigen, it has moved out from its site to the underlying connective tissues. Now this is the section of epithelium that I have already shown you. Various antigen that is there, bacteria, viruses. Langerhans cell recognize an antigen. The Langerhans cell, it's now moving toward the cutaneous lymph node. It will reach the lymph node, and with the help of MHC1, it will activate CD8 cell. Now the CD8 cell, it will scan the antigen that is there with the Langerhans cell, and now this CD8 cell is getting converted into, after scanning the antigen, it is getting converted into cytotoxic T cell. Sorry, this is getting converted into cytotoxic T cell, and this cytotoxic T cell, it will kill the keratinocyte that is having this same antigen, be it virus, be it bacteria. And this same Langerhans cell, it will activate CD4 cell, which will secrete interleukin 2, this cytokine, which will lead to further proliferation of CD8 cytotoxic T cell, and hence this CD8 cytotoxic T cell will kill the antigen that is there by releasing various enzymes, and cell will die by apoptosis. So I'll repeat this process again. This is a very useful process that's going on in the body, continuously going on in the body. This Langerhans cell, which is a surveillance cell, it will take up an antigen and it will go to the regional, it will move to underlying connective tissue, it will go to the cutaneous lymph node. In the cutaneous lymph node, it will activate CD8 cell and CD4 cell by MHC1 and the fragment of antigen that is this Langerhans cell is carrying. Now this CD8 cell will get activated into cytotoxic T cell. Now this cytotoxic T cell, as the name suggests, cytotoxic, it will kill the antigen that was processed. So this process is continuously going on in the body. And how this take place? Yes. Let us see. This is a cytotoxic T cell. It is having a copy of antigen that was being processed by the Langerhans cell. Langerhans cell, it has recognized the antigen, and by MHC1, it has now the cytotoxic T cell is formed. But the important thing is that it is having a copy of the antigen. Now, it will move to the targeted cell, and it will make sure that the targeted cell have the same antigen that is there in the cytotoxic T cell, and once it is make sure that yes, it is the same cell, it will release various perforins and granular enzyme, and with the help of perforin, pore formation will be there in the targeted cell, and the targeted cell will die. And later on, once the cell it has died, the macrophage cell that is there, it will digest the dead cell, dying and dead cell by engulfing the remnant. So, in the histological picture of lichen planus, the number of T cell and macrophages will be drastically increased. So, let us see in this cartoon representation. In order to make the concept a bit easier, I have drawn this cartoon diagram. So let us see what is there. This is a surveillance officer uh, or Langerhans cell that I have told you. This is a Langerhans cell, and it is the duty of Langerhans cell is as a surveillance officer. So it's looking now. The Langerhans cell notice a suspicious maybe antigen or suspicious virus or bacteria. It take a pic of this suspicious criminal, and now it go to the police headquarter department whatever, and it informs CD8 cell, this officer, senior officer, CD8 cell, and this CD8 cell it will look into the picture and it will start making the custom bullets for the criminal. And apart from that, this Langerhans cell, it will go to another officer, CD4 cell. This CD4 cell, it will order more recruitment of the CD8 cytotoxic cell, so that the number of police inspector formed against the suspicious criminal will increase. And now this officer, police officer who is recruited for this suspicious criminal, it is having the custom made bullet or custom made weapon so that it can kill this specific suspicious criminal, virus or bacteria, whatever it is there. And this so at the last this suspicious criminal is getting killed, and the macrophage cell at the end, it will take care of the dead body of the suspicious criminal that is there. So this process is going on in the body in order to control the infection, that is caused by viruses and bacteria. But the thing that is going wrong in the lichen planus is, what is going wrong in the lichen planus when everything is going right? Is the Langerhans cell by chance, the Langerhans cell, the surveillance officer in the body, it is by chance considered keratinocyte as a suspicious antigen. It has taken a fragment, a part of keratinocyte, and this Langerhans cell is getting confused. I don't know what exactly it is. So it will take a part of keratinocyte as an antigen to the lymph node, and it will process, CD8 cell will process this keratinocyte, and it forms various cytotoxic CD8 cell against it, and now CD4 cell, it will form more of cytotoxic CD8 cell, and hence the number of CD8 cytotoxic T cell will increase drastically. And these cytotoxic T cell, it will now go to the keratinocyte, and it will recognize this as an antigen, and hence antigen antibody reaction will be there, and the T cell, cytotoxic T cell, will start killing the keratinocyte that is there. Not only that, it will also call various macrophages that is there, and in order to get rid of the fragments of cytotoxic T cell that is there, and hence the disease will be there. In this diagram, we can see the keratinocyte being attacked by cytotoxic T cell. So what will happen when the basal layer of the cell, keratinocyte, it's getting killed by or targeted by the cytotoxic T cell? the overlying cell, spinous layer and all the layer, when basal cell is destroyed, they will drop into underlying connective tissues. All the cells, once basal cell is gone, the continuity of the epithelium is getting compromised, then overlying cells, all the cells, they will drop into underlying connective tissue and hence giving a sawtooth appearance of red apex. So, what will be there in the histopathology? In histological picture, we'll be seeing the T cell, the number of T cell is increased, number of macrophages is increased. We can see the dying keratinocyte or colloid body. We can see hydrophic degeneration of basal cell and sawtooth appearance of red apex. So, let us see the Langerhans cell with keratinocyte MHC2, it will activate CD4 cell secretion, and MHC1 on basal keratinocyte, that I have already explained you. MHC1 on basal keratinocyte, that is by Langerhans cell, it will activate CD8 cytotoxic T cell and cause degranulation of mast cell and killing of various keratinocytes. There are so many processes that is going on in the lichen planus, but I have explained you the one that is the most widely accepted one. So once we know for which part of the body antibody is formed, we know where exactly the disease will be there. So granular cell layer, if affected, it is seen in pemphigus foliaceus and pemphigus erythematous. Spinous layer in pemphigus vulgaris, and hence bulla formation will be there in the spinous layer. So desmoglein 1 is present. I have already told you. So if desmoglein, as we all know, is present in the layer of epidermis, desmoglein 3 is present in the basal and spinous layer. So the antibody will form against them and they will be bulla in the spinous layer. And if the antibody is formed against laminin 7, BP, then bulla formation will be there in subepithelial or subepithelial blisters will be there. Clinical features I'll be discussing in part 2. Thank you.